So hello, I welcome you in my new video. If you watched my older videos, you probably noticed that I'm actually shooting this video on a new camera, and I hope it's gonna improve the quality of my videos, and that you're gonna enjoy it more than the previous ones, because I actually watched the previous ones and the quality was really bad, and I realized that I can no longer shoot these videos like that. So from now on it's gonna be shot on this camera, so you don't have to worry that the quality would be so bad as it was in my previous videos. So if you're new here, I would like to welcome you. This video is going to be about anxiety and issues with fear and anxiety, which you might experience in your life. And so if you experience any of these issues, I'm gonna have something really practical for you. I always like telling you guys something practical what you can do and imply in your lives, because I think there has been enough of theory and theorizing about everything, and I just want to make this so that you can benefit from it in everyday life. Also, if you're new here, please subscribe to my channel. I post every Sunday, and I post issues. I post topics from. Well, these can be issues. I post topics from self-help and psychology. And now straight into the video. So anxiety. I think this is something that a lot of people are experiencing today, and what I think basically is I think about anxiety in this way. Once I was at this lecture, and I learned this really interesting thing, is that anxiety, and I believe that it's actually true if you think about it more thoroughly, is that basically if you have anxiety, you usually think of anxiety as if you are anxious about something. Maybe you're anxious about some exam, maybe you're anxious about some relationship which you have. Maybe you are worried that you're going to lose something that is precious to you. But in general, what it can be said is that basically anxiety of something is always anxiety of dying, anxiety of death. And it might not appear to you if you think about this for this first time, but basically what it wants to say is that you have this fear inside of you. It's really deeply rooted, that you fear death. And although it might not seem to you like this in your everyday life, if you think about it in context with your everyday life, you might find situations which are actually in line with this. What do I mean by that? I mean that we don't have to necessarily speak about death in this like one way, as if you are dying, but we can think about it and speak about this in this way, where if you look at life in this way, you can actually see that the death is presented everywhere all the time. And it's not like in this one way, how you might think about it, that like some living organism dies. But you might think about it also that basically every single thing that you have in your life, all the situations you are in, or the people you know, that it's just a lot of the things that are just temporary. If you think about what you were doing yesterday, it's just these things are dead now. It's just never gonna come back. If you're watching this video today and there's gonna be tomorrow, then tomorrow, this day is gonna be also like gone, dead. You have the birth of the new morning, and then you have the whole day, and then the whole day ends. And just like your day ends, your relationship ends. The plants which you have in your house, maybe they die. Animals die, people die. Everything is in this, like there are seasons in nature. You have summer, autumn, winter, spring, and this kind of like circle. It's kind of like a circle in life, where everything like is constantly changing, And so this anxiety which you have, it's kind of like connected to this constant change that is present in your life. And when you are anxious about something, what it means is that you are anxious about losing something. You are anxious that something is literally or abstractly is going to die, and you're going to lose it forever, and it's just going to be dead, and you're not going to have it anymore, and you're not going to have it present in your life anymore. What do I mean by this? Basically, when you are anxious about something, it means that you are holding on to something, and you are holding on to it so tightly that you don't see other options. It's basically as if you imagined it, as if you have this razor light, and you have this narrow kind of vision, and you're looking at something that's in center of your like the vision, that you are able to look at it, and you're looking at it so closely, in this like so narrow view, that you're not able to see other options, and you're just so clinging to it. You see only this one option, and you don't see other options, and then you become anxious about losing this thing, and you are afraid that you're going to lose this thing, and that's going to make you miserable. You're never going to be happy again. You're just going to lose it. You don't want to lose it, and you want to do everything that is in your power so that you will keep it. How I can make this more practical for you? I will give you an example of this. So imagine that you are in like high school or college, and you have some really important exam in front of you. Whether it's some sort of degree that you have to pursue, or it's some kind of random exam that you have during your studies, or it's some kind of test that's not really that important, but still you are anxious about it. You're not only anxious about it right before the test, but you are anxious about it already the day before, maybe a week before, maybe you think about it randomly during your day and you just start being anxious. Why is that? It's like this because if you're anxious that you're gonna fail this exam, you're anxious about the consequences maybe, you're anxious about what's gonna happen if you fail, and it's making you so fearful. While in reality, what you could do, and this actually helped me a lot, I'm saying you this concept now, this you can apply it really practically in your life, is that what's going to help you deal with your anxiety is going to be you trying to see other options in anything which you do. If you catch yourself being too clingy to something and holding on to something too tight, try to look at it and see other options. For example, with your college degree, maybe you are in college and you're studying really hard, and you just have to get this degree, you just want this degree so bad, but this exam that you have, they are so difficult, and you have to study really hard for them, and you are so anxious about it. You're anxious that you're not going to make it. You're maybe anxious that you're going to be kicked out of this school and you're not going to finish. Then what you can do about this feeling is that you can really imagine this. This is actually something which I really love and enjoy doing, this imagination. When you imagine that you have this one route and you are going on this route, and there's this like pathway that is ahead of you, like you see this one route, and you see that if you keep going on this route, you're eventually going to get your degree and you're going to graduate. And when you are on it, you are so anxious that you're not going to make it, that you are not able to see the other options. So imagine that there are other options. Imagine that there is this whole another route. And imagine what would happen if somebody really, if worst comes to worst and you are really kicked out of this school. What if you are really kicked out? Then what would happen is that this alternative route, you would have to take this other route. And so imagine you are kicked out of school. First you feel really horrible, you feel really like really down, really low, you feel like you're not capable of anything, you are kicked out, you feel like this huge failure in your life. But then what's happened is that the life just don't care. The life just rolls like further as it was before. Nothing happens, life goes on, whether you like it or not. It's just another day and then another day and another, and you just have to assimilate to it, and your life just goes on. So what you're gonna do now when you are kicked out of college? Well, you're gonna go and you're gonna find yourself a job. Maybe it's gonna be a very similar job which you would find even if you graduated from this college. Maybe not. Maybe it's gonna be something completely different. if you're studying something like business or something like that, then you can go work in some company and start like really low, and maybe after some time get some promotion and get better. And so when you are working, suddenly it's possible when you took this alternative road that you will realize that you actually feel better on this road. Because suddenly you don't have to go to school, you don't have to study. Maybe you didn't like studying in the first place. A lot of people don't like studying. Maybe you were really anxious about your all exams. Maybe you weren't just anxious like the day before the exam. Maybe you were anxious the entire semester about this exam. And suddenly now you have all this free time. You don't have to study. You just go to work. You develop yourself in this work you have. And then you go home and you have free time. You don't have to study. You don't have to worry. You're not anxious. You just keep working in your work. And suddenly you realize that you met these great new people. You really enjoy your work. And for the life of you, now when you assimilate it, you just can't figure out why you were so anxious about leaving the school. Because I'm going to tell you something. There are a lot of people who graduated from college and they got amazing jobs. But there are a lot of people who graduated college and they couldn't find a job. And maybe they failed after the graduation even in finding job. There are a lot of people who don't have college and they succeed in life. And then there are people who don't have college and they didn't succeed in life. So college really has not that much to do with it. It's you who are working on yourself. So there's no reason to be anxious about college. If you don't go to college, nothing major really happens in the long run. Maybe even if you go to college, and you will realize that you maybe didn't even need it in the first place. Well, unless you're doing something that is really important for, if you are a doctor or something, it's probably a different story, but so this is something that can actually happen. I'm going to give you another example. I'm going to give you example from my life, because I feel like it would be nice if I sometimes told you something, some practical experience from my life. So in my life, what happened is that when I was in college, I actually had this opportunity to work in this company. And so I went to this company, I got the job. I was still studying, so it was a part-time job. And what actually happened was that I hated this job. Like, if I should be like brutally honest with you, I hated it. It was exactly like what I studied. I'm not gonna get into that. So it was in the line of what I was studying, but I hated the job anyways. I didn't like it. It was just the work environment. I didn't like the offices. I didn't like what the job was, what I was supposed to do in there. It was very boring kind of job. I didn't see any meaning in it. It was just really horrible working experience for me. But this whole time I was going there, I felt really anxious. I felt really anxious that I would lose this job. And every day I would go to this work, I would feel so anxious about everything that was going on here. About every task I was supposed to do. I felt anxious. Oh my God, I'm not gonna... And my stomach actually hurt. And I can feel it now when I'm telling you that. Like, I can imagine how I felt back then. My stomach hurt from that. And I was just so anxious about every little task that I'm gonna screw it up and they're gonna kick me out and all of this. And then what actually happened after I worked there for like 2 months, what happened is that I actually got kicked out. So the thing that I was really scared of actually happened and I was kicked out. And they had reasons for that. They told me some mistakes that I made. But also it wasn't so black and white. I'm not gonna get into it. There were some issues in this company and I only found out about it later, and I'm not gonna get into it. It's not important. What's important is that what I was afraid of actually happened, and I was kicked out of this company. But the day when I was kicked out, it just, it was bad, but only because I felt so incompetent. I felt so stupid. I felt so horrible. I felt like a complete failure. Like I'm failing everything. But after some time, I finally realized that this is the best thing that could ever happen. Because I hated the job. I didn't want to work there. And so now, I didn't have to go there every morning. I didn't have to get up every morning feeling anxious about it. I didn't have to work in this environment, in these offices. I didn't have to do all the meaningless things I was doing there. Suddenly I had much more free time, so I focused more on school. And after that, I was able to find myself a better job, which was much better than this one. And so what happened here, if you listen to me carefully now, was that I was anxious about losing something which I didn't even like. Try to think about it for a second. Maybe with the first example which I told you about the college, about the person who dropped out of college and later found out that he actually enjoyed his work, he was also anxious about losing like the college when he didn't even have a good time in here, and he was anxious a lot, he didn't feel good, and he was anxious about losing this, when in fact what he gained was so much better. And just like I was in this job, I was anxious about losing this job, when in fact, when I actually did lose it, it was the best thing ever. I didn't have to go there anymore. I felt this huge relief. And so I think a lot of the times it's this fear of this change. You're fearing that whatever is going to happen to you is going to be much worse. But I don't really believe in this. Because every path you take, there's going to be good things on there and bad things on there. So in the end, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to tell you another example. When I was a little kid, I was swimming competitively. And I was really anxious about swimming. I was really bad at it. If I won like 1 or 2 times in my entire life, that would be a lot. But I was in this swim team and I was swimming a lot. And everybody else, they were winning a lot of stuff. But I just was really bad at it. Let's put it like this. And I was also anxious about it. And when I finally quit swimming, it was a couple years later, I looked back on this whole experience, and again, what happened is that I noticed that I was anxious about losing something which I didn't even like. Why is this happening? Like, think about it in your own life. It was because I wasn't seeing that the other option would be even better. I didn't see that if I wasn't able to go swim anymore, maybe I would find a different hobby. Later I was dancing. I really liked dancing. Or I was reading a lot of books. So I would have much more time to read books. And so these other better opportunities would open up for me, and I just didn't see them. I was so anxious and so clinging to swimming, and I was really bad in that. The worse I was in that, the worse it was for me, the more I clinged to it actually, the more anxious I felt about it. And this is a really stupid thing to do. You're not doing it on purpose. I think you're doing it because you don't see the other options, or you don't want to see the other options, or you don't really want to admit to yourself what is really going on. That you are clinging on to something that is actually bad for you. Another example I could give you, it's not from my life because I don't really I didn't really experience this, but for some people it might be that they're clinging on to some partner that they have. Maybe you now have a partner and you like a boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, wife, and so on, and you're just really anxious that you're going to lose this person. So maybe you're anxious about your relationships, and so you start clinging on it, and you are anxious that they're going to lose them. And what is again going on is that you don't see the other options. You don't see that there are other people that you could date. And this is not me like bragging to you about how you should be promiscuous or something. This is not about switching your partner. This is about what's going on in your mind. You are anxious because you feel this scarcity. You feel like if this partner is going to leave you, then you're not going to find anybody else. But that's not true, because if you were able to find this one person, then you have the ability to attract the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever you do. And so you have the ability, you know that, because if it happened once, it can happen twice, it can happen 3 times, it can happen how many times you want. So this is not the issue. And if you are really anxious about losing this person, then try to at least, to calm you down, I would really advise you, try to imagine that you actually did lose them. And try to imagine that there are other options. Just imagine it. I'm not saying don't do anything about it. Just in your mind, open your mind to other possibilities. I think the anxiety is closely connected to close-mindedness. If you open your mind and you will see all these other possibilities, you're not going to be so anxious about this one person anymore, because you will see that you can date somebody else and it's okay. And so what is going on again? You are clinging to this one person because you are thinking that he or she is the best one for you and there's no one like them. But that's not true. Because everything in life, it has upsides and downsides. Maybe you feel like this person is great for you and you have a great time with them. But maybe you don't see the downsides that there are in these relationships. Maybe you idealize this person and maybe you don't see that maybe they're manipulating you or controlling you, or maybe they make you suffer by cheating on you, or you don't want to see that, or they're like they're making you miserable in some way, and you don't want to see that. You only idealize them because you want to keep the things as they are. You are afraid of losing something or moving on. You are afraid of literally this death of this relationship. While if you found somebody else, maybe this person would treat you even nicer. Maybe this person that you would find would have a different upsides and downsides. There's like this sea of opportunities you can have in basically anything you are doing in your life. And there are going to be upsides and downsides to everything. So you don't have to cling to just one thing. You don't have to cling to some work. Because in this work where I worked, which I didn't like, as I told you right now, there were also upsides. It was really well paid, for example. I made some really nice savings from there. So there was an upside. The downside was that I hated going there, I was anxious, I didn't enjoy doing it. Then I found a different job. And this job was paid worse. It actually paid a lot worse than this previous one. But it was more enjoyable for me. And so it's not like, in the end, there are upsides and downsides to both of these things. It's just really about some like preferences or something. Eventually I ended in this work as well, and I found another work. It doesn't matter. When I look back on it, my previous employments, I just see that there were upsides and downsides to anything I was ever doing. Always. And that it didn't matter if I'm doing this job. If I didn't find this job, I would find another job that would have different upsides and downsides, different people working in there, and so on. It just doesn't really matter. But This is not like I can tell you this and you will suddenly go and be like, oh, I get it. This is something that it's better if you observe it in your life. And this is something that brings you calmness only after you experience this. So when I was applying to my first job, I didn't see this. I didn't know it's like this. But now, when I worked in more places, I can see that this is like that. You know? And so right now, I don't think I would ever be anxious about a job. Because there are plenty of jobs. And they're all gonna have upsides and downsides. And this anxiousness of clinging to one job, it's just not healthy, and it keeps you from having open mind and seeing other opportunities. So now I'm thinking about if I should say some other example, but I feel like I express myself really well. And so what you can do in your practical life, if you catch yourself feeling anxious about anything, maybe you have right before your exam, I would tell you, like, set your timer on and give yourself like 5 minutes. Give yourself like 5 minutes of doing this like short imagination. Imagine, but don't do it neurotically. Just as an exercise. Just imagine, what if this exam really doesn't work out? Imagine the whole path, the whole process that's going to happen after that. What's literally going to happen if you don't pass this exam? Literally. Like technically, what's going to happen? If I can guess what's going to happen is that chances are this is not the only try you have for this exam. So you're just going to go to try it for a second time. So, like, technically, nothing is really going on. You know? You're just going to try again. It's not like you're going to be kicked out of the whole college just because you didn't do this one exam for the first trial. It doesn't work like this I don't think it works like this in any college. Or imagine that you're in this relationship and you feel like you don't have other options. And so imagine, just in your head, don't like break up with this person or anything, but just imagine in your head what would literally happen if this partner broke up with you. What would happen? Well, what would happen? You would just go home, go to work, do your thing as you always doing. You would heal in time. Maybe you would have more time for your hobbies, for your friends. Maybe you would be able to spend your free time doing things which you enjoy doing, but you weren't allowed to do as much because you spent time with your partner and you were doing these things together. This is actually what can happen to you after a breakup, is that you don't have to spend your free time in ways that you would never otherwise spend. You can do your own thing which you like. You know, you don't have to assimilate to anybody else. And then with time you will find somebody who's gonna be better for you. Just imagine it. Just try to think about it as this is an option. You know, sometimes it just really helps to see this, just only to be able to see this as an opportunity, as an option. Because it's really about the closed-mindedness. If you open your mind, you will see that there is nothing to be anxious about, because you have options. There are things about how and ways how your life is gonna roll after this failure or breakup or anything, or lost or anything which you roll in your head. Your life is just gonna go on, because you can already find examples of this in your own life. If you look at your own history in your own life, you will notice that maybe sometimes, a lot of the times actually, when you felt like there was this like really bad thing happening to you, maybe with time you found out that you grew more as a person because of this. You learned a lot of things from that. Maybe it had some impact on you, that even if something really bad happened to you, maybe now you started helping other people. Maybe you healed yourself like that. So you should always see like this sea of opportunities. and there are always upsides and downsides to everything. So that's it. That's my advice for anxiety, and this is actually something that helped me a lot. And it was enough to do like 5 minutes of this. Whenever I caught myself being anxious about something, like exam in school or losing my job or anything like that, I imagine practically, literally, what's gonna happen practically in everyday life if this thing that you fear, if it's really gonna happen. Life will just go on. That's what's gonna happen, and you're gonna deal. And so try to think about it from this perspective and think about these alternative scenarios. It's really fun if you really get into it. It doesn't have to be all tragic. It's just an imagination. Don't get yourself anxious just by thinking about this stuff. Don't do it, like I said, don't do it neurotically. Don't do it in a way that you will freak yourself out only by imagining it. Just open your mind to this option. That's it. Just open your mind. And you stop being so clingy, and you're gonna stop suffer so much. And that's my advice to you. And so I will look forward to your comments. If you have any, like, all your experiences about anxiety, if you can tell me, like, maybe if you have some examples from your life when this actually happened to you, that you would be anxious about losing something, but then you realize that it wasn't actually so bad at all. Just write it down. I will be really interested to read your comments. And also I'm gonna end it here. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like or subscribe to my channel. And yeah, I will think of my next video, which is gonna be on Sunday, the next Sunday. So yeah, have a nice now, and I will see you next time. Bye.